Am I the asshole for expecting my son to share his room? Background. My 40SF husband, 40SM, and I bought a 3-bedroom house a few years ago, shortly before the panini. We of course took the master bedroom, and the other 2 bedrooms went to our children, then 12 female and 10 male. We put a very nice double bed in the larger room, and a single bed in the smaller room, and told them both that they could choose their rooms, but whoever ended up in the larger room may be asked to share or relocate for visiting family members, while whoever ended up in the smaller room would have it to themselves always. We almost never have family over. Hubby and I are both only children, and our parents are in other provinces, so we were surprised when our older daughter chose the smaller room, and our younger son chose the larger room. But okay, they worked it out between themselves, both seemed happy with the choice, so okay. And it has remained that way for a couple of years. Now, we have a 4-day weekend coming up. My kids are now 15 female and 12 male, and my mother decided to come down to visit. Of course, we told her okay, my husband and I, as we hadn't seen each other in a while, and I told our son, with the larger room and bed, that grandma would be here for a few days, and would be using his bed. Well, my son threw a fit. He didn't want to share a room with grandma, not even on an air mattress, not even for 3 nights, she smells funny. So we reminded him of the original deal, and offered to put the air mattress in the living room, but that wasn't enough, he'd have no privacy there. His sister offered to let him put the air mattress in her room, which she wasn't required to do, and that wasn't okay either. My husband and I offered to let him put the air mattress in our room, and he said no to that, because sharing a room with your parents, God bless the privilege, but whatever. Finally, I put my foot down and said, the condition of you having the bigger room was that you'd give it up for visiting family members. So one way or another, you're sleeping on an air mattress for 3 nights. You can choose if the air mattress goes in your room or our room or the living room, or literally any room in this house, but you are sleeping on an air mattress while grandma is here. Shortly after that confrontation, my husband came to me and suggested that we encourage my mom to stay in a hotel. I asked him who was going to pay for that hotel. Since she can't afford it, we can't afford to put her up, and he went silent. Now he's calling me ta for forcing our son to give up his room for all of 3 nights, and suggesting that I tell my mom not to come at all since apparently, none of us can afford it. Edit. I sincerely appreciate everyone's comments and judgments, but I have officially reached the point where every time I look at my notifications, it adds 2 every second without me even having to hit refresh. Clearly I should have posted this on my main account, since apparently Reddit karma is important in some way. Lol. To follow the common am I the asshole trend and respond to some common themes, 1. Why don't I offer my own, and my husband's, bed to my mom? My husband has back problems, so also cannot viably sleep on an air mattress. I will not be going into detail on this. I also assume that it will be incredibly obvious to everyone why it is not viable for my husband and my mother to sleep in a bed together while I sleep on an air mattress. Not to mention that she would never allow me to give up my bed for her as a visitor. 2. Why doesn't my mom sleep on the couch, air mattress? She's 83 years old. Need I say more? 3. Anything involving my son and daughter switching rooms. My daughter is willing to help in the short term, but she seems a bit smug right now about the overall room choice, so she has no desire to switch rooms. And I will not force her, because what kind of parent would I be if I hold my son to the letter of his deal, but go back on my word to my daughter? You may decide I'm ta, and I'll accept that, but I am not a hypocrite. 4. I am fully aware of the privacy a 12-year-old boy requires. We've had that conversation, and, at the prompting of a couple commenters, I have also recently asked my husband if there was a private conversation between him and my son that would in some way change this situation. He said no. Since I do not currently have any reason to believe my husband would lie to me outright, I'm considering that conversation closed. 5. Rip my DMS, apparently? Lol. I didn't know that happened to 40-something married moms, but please know that I am not interested. Not the asshole. Your son sounds a bit entitled if he can't survive 3 nights on an air mattress while his grandmother is there. Expecting him to share a bed or room with her would be excessive, but there are presumably other spaces in a 3-bedroom house where he could crash. Edit. To all the people saying YTA. Because a 12-year-old needs privacy, safe space, etc., I can't help but think how entitled a society we have become. In past decades 2 to 3 kids would share a room through their entire child and teenage years, and even today there are tons of kids living in miserable conditions in slums, refugee camps or other similar situations. And original poster is being called an asshole for telling her son he has to vacate his room for 3 nights while his 60-70-something-year-old grandma visits so she doesn't have to sleep on an air mattress or stay in a hotel. Just wow. Second, this. People are also forgetting that this was a pre-made arrangement. If the son didn't want to share, he could have picked the smaller room. But no, he wanted the bigger one, so he needs to abide by the condition put in place. Like it's 3 days, he needs to get over himself acting as if it's for 3 months. If they give in now and let the conditions of the room be ignored, it's going to get much worse as he gets older. Also, happy cake day. This, and think about how unfair it would be for his older sister who gave up the bigger room only to learn she could have had the bigger room all for herself with enough tantrums. Not the asshole. This sub is obviously full of children who think 3 days on an air mattress, which he agreed to, is akin to some form of abuse that will leave him scarred well into his adult life. I think he can give his grandmother his bed and stop being a brat, which nothing against him, but is fairly typical kid behavior. I occasionally had to do the same for my grandparents. In hindsight, it was obviously the right call. You're not putting your elderly parents on a damn air mattress, that's insanity. Greater than I occasionally had to do the same for my grandparents when my grandfather was alive and my grandparents would stay with us over Christmas. My mom would put them up in her bed and take the couch, my sister and I both having loft beds. When my grandfather died and my grandmother couldn't make the stairs anymore, she took half the couch and I would take the other one because she was afraid to sleep alone. That's what you do for elderly relatives. If this were a permanent arrangement or anything, then the son would have a point about needing his own space, sure. But complaining about, checking my notes here, 3 whole nights? That's honestly kind of entitled even without the added context of the terms of taking the bigger room having been clear from the start. Not the asshole. You made the conditions clear and now he isn't happy they are happening to him. For context, I am the oldest of 3 and had a similar arrangement. I chose the biggest and best room, after my parents, which also had a bathroom next door that, essentially, became my private bathroom. The arrangement was that I was always the one who had to give up the room to guests, also because I got a double bed. While I didn't love giving up my room, I understood that was the price of having such a good room to begin with. Also, I usually would give up my room for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. A 4-day weekend is nothing. You son got the room he wanted and is now looking to renege on the deal. You have given him various options, but it is clear he simply does not intend to keep his word. Your husband thinks the person to compromise to his tantrums is your guest, but there is another option. He loses the room entirely and it goes to your daughter going forward. If he continues the temper tantrum while she's visiting and causes her to feel bad, maybe that room should be considered a guest room that he's allowed to borrow when not in use. Make it nice and generic until he learns some of the many lessons he needs. Not the asshole. He is not a toddler. Ask him why is he so adamant about it, but then remember him, he has the bigger room for a reason and he needs to obey. All these people saying original poster is the asshole. Oh my god, what is wrong with you? They are not abusing him, they have been more than fair and he is throwing a fit. I agree with trying to understand why he is acting like this to see if there is some underlying issue there, but this kid need to understand the concept of compromise. All the people saying original poster is ta are the entitled teenagers of Reddit. In ta I do not get these YTA responses. Just because someone has kids doesn't mean kids have to have a private bedroom. Kids sharing a bedroom is still super common and not indicative of someone being a good parent. While it is a slight inconvenience to give up his room, it's not like they are putting him in a tent outside. Air mattresses are comfortable and grandmother, depending on her age, may not be able to get on or off one on the floor. 3 nights isn't a big deal. A kid doesn't get to control the house period and needs to learn about compromising, long-term obligations, and sharing. 3 nights out of 2 years is nothing. The suggestion for the parents to give up their room is laughable. You do not negotiate with terrorists. My gut reaction is the kid wants privacy so much because at 12 years old he is waking up with a hard-on every morning and wants to take care of it. Your husband can have a private conversation with him about that if you so chose. Your son was given 3 very nice options. He can pick which room, but he will be on an air mattress. Also, do you not share a room when you go on family vacations? He will have to share a dorm room in college more than likely, as singles are uncommon. The rules of me being allowed to have a queen bed as a teen was that it was the guest bed when people came over. Eventually we moved to a house with a guest room, but it wasn't the end of the world. To be honest, I'm surprised the kid isn't already falling asleep on the couch from playing video games. My family was far away from everyone due to a job transfer, so we always traveled to visit them since they were in the same state, and we'd sleep 4 people in one room. My grandmother was in a retirement home in a little studio, and I remember my brother and I begging to spend the night while my parents went to stay back at my aunt's. He slept on the small love seat and I slept on a mat under the kitchen table, and it was awesome because grandma let us have pizza for breakfast. She died when I was 7 and I wish I had more time for memories. Not the asshole. WTH? Is your husband serious? How can he let your son dictate the rules of the house? You're the parent and it's only 3 friggin' nights. Put your foot down on this one. Make your son sleep in the garage for all you care. But be sure your mom is comfortable and happy during her visit. Stand your ground. That's what I don't get. Of course the kid is throwing a fit, he's a kid. But the husband, is he trying to raise a little asshole? The son agreed, he has to keep his word, even if it's uncomfortable. That's a huge lesson to teach a kid, even if it didn't involve grandma's comfort. Not the asshole, but can you send your husband to your son room and your mother sleep with you in the master bedroom? This sounds great, and affordable. Not the asshole. LMFAO. People in the comment section saying, he is 14, he needs privacy. I am a teenager myself and I can assure you that 3 days of a guest sharing a room isn't invading privacy, especially considering he is the one with the larger room. Also, the original poster did provide him with various options. It is not as if he was forced to stay with his grandmother. He is throwing childish tantrum and sounds like an entitled privileged person. You are not the asshole. Original poster, you sound more reasonable than a lot of parents including mine. Your son however is the asshole, and a big one. Young people on Reddit take the privacy as teenagers thing extremely seriously. For a majority of the world, every kid having their own private bedroom at night is completely unrealistic and unaffordable. Between siblings and roommates in college, I didn't have my own room until I was in my 20s, in my own apartment. Did it suck? Of course. But I survived, and so do billions of others. My kid only has their own room because I only have one kid. Housing is expensive and most people do the best they can. They so are, to be honest. I mean, they go as far as to say that a teen sharing a room with his visiting grandmother is not appropriate. I agree with that. Most people in my family share a room until they are older than 20. I myself still share my room with my mother because of lack of rooms, and while it is inconvenient at times, it isn't as privacy breaching and threatening as people here are saying. Your kid is lucky, it's very rare to have that, to be honest. Not the asshole. What is with people saying your son needs his space? Grandma isn't moving in permanently. It's a temporary inconvenience over a long weekend. He needs to respect his elders. He wouldn't be walking the earth if grandma hadn't raised kids. PhD as child development here. Do not put grandma in a hotel. Stand firm. He knew the deal. Do not let this child rule here, or you are creating even worse situations for you and for him as he gets older. The fact that he's already throwing a fit leads me to believe this isn't the first time he has realized that throwing a tantrum lets him get his way. Still, you are clear on the rules. Stick to them. The air mattress deal is very reasonable for 3 freaking days. Don't create a monster by giving in. Your husband is a huge asshole. He'd rather tell his mill that she can't visit because his 12-year-old can't share his room for 3 days. How absurd is that? A 12-year-old trumps grandma. Not the asshole, but I encourage you to inform your husband he's sleeping on the air mattress too. That's what I am thinking. What is up with the husband? Question mark. Absolutely not the asshole. 1. Your son agreed to the rule. Just because he regrets it now doesn't mean it goes away. 2. Sleeping on an air mattress for 3 days is not the end of the world. He's having all of his needs met and then some. For fuck's sake, there are kids sleeping in tents right now because they don't have a house, and your son is being an entitled brat because he has to check notes sleep in a warm bed in a warm house for 3 nights. Seriously, find a way to let this kid see what actual suffering looks like, so maybe he'll appreciate that in the game of life. The kid was born on second base simply by virtue of having a clean, warm home. 3. Sorry mom. I know you're old and we may literally never see you again, but my son having his own bed is apparently more important than my ability to hug my mother again. Your son, and your husband, is an unempathetic brat who would be happy if you never saw your mother again just because it would be inconvenient for him. Imagine telling someone they can't see their elderly mother for what may be the last time. Telling them they can't hug their mother once more, or even hold her hand, because I refuse to give up my room for 3 days. Fuck. It's so entitled it's evil. 4. You're the adult. You are in charge. The child is not in charge. The child is not in charge. The child is not in charge. If and when the kid owns his own house, he can be in charge of whatever the fuck he wants, who stays and where they go. Until then, it's your house, you're the adult. Tell your husband to be the fucking adult and take charge. Don't let a kid with an overdeveloped sense of entitlement and an underdeveloped sense of empathy dictate what happens in the house. What lesson does that send? I can already see his future. Boss. This is Johnson, he is sharing your office now. Your son. What? No, fuck that, I don't share my space. Boss. Well, you're fired. Your son. This is an outrage. Boss. No, this is life, now get out. Cue your son returning home and demanding his room back while grumbling about how it isn't fair. Teach him now, or set him up for failure forever. It won't be easy, but hard lessons like this rarely are. Well, that was an interesting dose of perspective, thank you for that. Normally, I'm not in favor of the "you should appreciate what you have because others have it worse" methodology, because it's often used to invalidate perfectly legitimate struggles, burdens. Then I read the rest of your comment. It actually hadn't occurred to me that I may never be able to hug my mother again, so that was a fun realization. And the bit about his future boss definitely drove the point home. So yep, point made. Yikes. Yeah, but this isn't a perfectly legitimate burden. He'll probably be crashing on air mattresses in college for fun. I've seen people in college sleep on a bare floor with nothing but a sweatshirt for a pillow for entire weekends. Not the asshole, no offense, but he is a kid. Grandma visiting Trump's kids emo. At his age when relatives visited us, not like it happens often, my siblings and I bunked up for a few nights. I thought you were going to say he had to share full time. It's 3 nights. Not the asshole, he agreed to a rule he thought he could get around. I don't really see a problem. He's 12. He gets to be mad for selfish, entitled reasons. Didn't mean he gets to have his way. It's less than a week. And he gets to choose where to sleep. I think it is almost his job, as a preteen, to see what he can get away with. He is at that age to press the limits and make a lot of noise. Most children and teens push boundaries and buttons to test the limits of what is allowed and how far they can push things. Not the asshole, I did and still do that every year for Christmas. Yes, it's bothersome, but it's for 3 days. And people suggesting that grandma should be the one to sleep on the air mattress, what a fuck? Elderly people are so prone to back pain, Jesus. Greater than yes, it's bothersome, but it's for 3 days. I just gave my bedroom up for the next 3 days for some refugees. I'll be sleeping in my office. If I can do it for strangers, this kid can do it for family. Not the asshole, you put out the rules nice and clear for getting the large room. He can't eat the cake and have it too, and it's time your kid learns that. Also, if you give in to the tantrum, expect more of those to follow. Given this episode though, after grandma's visit, I'd make them switch rooms since daughter is more reasonable. Wow, so daughter is punished for being reasonable, and all her brother had to do is pitch a hissy and she'll be asked to give up what is rightfully hers? What a horrible message to send. Original poster. Make sure you're protecting your daughter from being harassed into being a doormat by her spoiled brother and her dad. That's the kind of shit that would ruin her relationship with all of you. Edit. It wasn't suggested as a reward, it was suggested, since daughter is more reasonable. Guys, the daughter doesn't want the bigger room, she made her choice in the beginning and original poster says she's happy with it now. Everyone needs to leave her out of it, ESP the son and dad, when they start looking around for what she has that now seems valuable. I think their suggestion the daughter get the better room since she's actively being a reasonable and abiding person, and the boy get downgraded, since he isn't following the rules that were set as a condition for having the better room to begin with. What if the daughter does not want the room for that very same reason? She already has her room established, like she likes it where she already is. It would be punishing her if she didn't want to move to the larger room with those requirements. Not the asshole, your husband and son are both Oz. Your daughter is very nice for her offer. Put your foot down and let your mother sleep in your son's room. It doesn't hurt to sleep somewhere else for a few nights. I got my own room at 16, so he is quite lucky. Also, you have some husband problems. Not the asshole, it's literally 3 days. He'll get over it. People are acting like he's never going to have his room back. He's lucky to even have his own room to begin with. I would literally sleep on a cement floor with no blankets if it meant spending a weekend with my grandmother. Not the asshole, your son is old enough to know a deal is a deal. What message does it send to him and your daughter if you let him get away with throwing a tantrum to get out of the agreement? Not the asshole. Yes, this will likely seem very unfair to the daughter, who took the smaller room permanently for this exact reason. What was her sacrifice for, and how is this fair? Not enough information. Did you ask your daughter how she feels about having this compromise disregarded? To answer your question, I never considered disregarding the compromise, so no, I didn't ask her how she would feel. But thank you very much for the suggestion. I will be mentioning that to my husband tomorrow. Ooh, shit, my inner petty is coming out. Whoops, my bad. Really, your son made an agreement, so tell him what will happen. You're the parent. Don't take this BS from your son. Grandma is coming and he will be on the airbed in XXX room. Put your foot down. End of story. Not the asshole. Your son's a brat. He can give up his alone time for 3 days. It won't kill him.